Since we're talking about the new school, Heilbronner said that he wanted to make it Marxist. But he also gave a big lecture saying the most worthless discussion in economics was the distinction between productive and unproductive labor. And of course, that was what I was emphasizing.
He just doesn't know. He just didn't know.
He said, well, he had no idea that I was a Marxist, despite the fact that I used theories of political value. He thought of me as, he's worked for Chase Manhattan, and at that time I was being sent around the country by the Catholic Church, who was following my ideas and was popularizing them, and I actually wrote part of the papal encyclical on Populorum Progressum, on birth control. Because I on an airplane, I had met someone from the National Catholic Welfare Conference, and I said, if you don't cut the population down to the food supply, you have to increase the food supply to the population, and that requires land reform. And if you're going to take an reducing population, then you have to come out for land reform. I actually converted many of bishops and archbishops, and the man who became the cardinal who became the foreign secretary of the Vatican, and they sent me around promoting the liberation theology. Pope Paul VI approved what I was doing, and the good Pope was going to establish an Academy of Geoeconomics in Tulane University that I was to head to create an alternative to the World Bank based on countries producing their own food and land reform.
This is great stuff. You ought to write this down.
Well, for Heilbronner said, here we have a Catholic Wall Street guy. We have to replace him with a Marxist. But a Marxist who didn't talk about the difference between productive and unproductive labor. So he replaced me with two people, with Anwar Sheikh, who then spent his whole career writing about the distinction between productive and unproductive labor, and the person who, the son of a business school analyst whose name I gave a lecture before for the ERPI, and I'm blocking out his name too. The school, gradually after Heilbronner died, the school did become more open and Marxist. So they can even expect, take someone like Richard, and he just said that he and I, are not the typical Marxists, and that's the whole point. What happened to the rest of Marxism? Where did it all go? Why are we here almost as out of place in what calls itself Marxism as we were as Marxists and where the whole world was capitalism? That's the point, I think, that I hope comes out of all this interview. And it's not only here. In China, I was invited to the first World Marxist Conference as one of the lead speakers. They had posters with my name all over Beijing, and I talked about Volume 3 of Capital. It was not received, and you could see that was not their idea. They appointed me as a professor at the School of Marxist Studies, along with Sasha Alexander Buzgalin, who explained to me that Marxism was the Chinese word for politics. I get it. I get it now. Yeah, Marxism was Chinese characteristics. They didn't invite me to give the lead lecture for the Second World Marxism Conference. They invited David Harvey from here in New York, a British Marxist. Harvey said, you've got to look at Volume 3 of Capital, just like Michael said. His books have sold tremendously throughout China. That was not received well at all, because China, as you know now, has run into this huge real estate crisis of real estate financing. And if they would have read Volumes 2 and 3, they would have been able to avoid all of that. They're trying to, if they would have taxed all the land instead of having local cities raise money by selling the land to real estate developers, and then letting private banks bid up real estate prices and create a bubble, they would have known that that's what Marx said. The task of industrial capitalism is to get rid of all of this. you can see that I had the same problem in Russia. The Soviet Union had no idea of economic rent because they didn't charge rent. And they didn't really understand finance because they didn't charge interest. They said, we're going to get rid of rent and interest, just like Marxism said, but they didn't understand that the West didn't get rid of rent and interest and had certain plans of what they wanted to do with the post-Soviet economy. The Russians didn't see what was coming because we were trying to bring capitalism to Marxism to Russia, and it didn't work.